60 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. And again, these off-year elections, statewide elections in Virginia and New Jersey can often be bellwethers for the midterms. So, for example, Chris Christie winning an upset in New Jersey, being the governor of New Jersey, was sort of one of the canaries in the coal mine of the revolt that was to take place with Brexit and ultimately with the election of President Trump. And so what's happening in Virginia in particular, New Jersey too, although I think it's less likely Phil Murphy gets upset in New Jersey despite what a sort of disreputable and shrill individual he is. But Terry McAuliffe, this longtime Democrat Socialist Party reptile, has, in the fight of his life, this go-around as he tries to be governor one more term in Virginia, not reelected. You know, they've got one-term term limits. He was governor. Now KKK Northam is governor. Now Terry McAuliffe's trying to come back. And he's in a dead heat with a Republican in a state that went for Biden by 10 points, Virginia. And you know how blue Virginia's gotten with all the federal workers living in Northern Virginia. And one of the issues, central issues in the race, is school curriculum and the fights going on in Loudoun and Fairfax counties and elsewhere over critical race theory. So Terry McAuliffe, he was asked about it by a black female reporter, a local affiliate reporter in Virginia, and dismissed it. Wouldn't define what it is. He doesn't need to define it because he knows it's not being taught, even though he doesn't know what it is, at least according to his logic. He was asked about it again over the weekend by Dana Bash on CNN.
The issue is, and he's trying to do a backdoor deal on the Trump. He talks about this critical race theory. And I got to be honest with you. That is a dog whistle. We don't have critical race theory taught in Virginia. He brings up this is a Trump, Betsy DeVos thing on education. I hate to see people divided. I am a uniter. I got us out of the worst economic chaos before. I'll do it again with COVID. And I do it in a bipartisan way.
I'm glad you brought up critical race theory.
Sure.
And you call it a dog whistle. But it seems to be working somewhat in Virginia. And the reason I say that is the following. The Washington Post talked to a number of voters, including one who previously backed Democrats, one who voted for you in 2013, but now says, quote, now is switching over to the Republican Glenn Youngkin because he believes public schools are pushing a radical agenda in which American history is portrayed as racist and transgender kids are encouraged to use the bathroom of their choice. So you lost that voter. What do you say to him?
I really hate to see what Glenn Youngkin is trying to do to Virginia, what Donald Trump did our country. I really hate to see the division, the hatred. We're putting these children in this horrible position. Let's just be clear. We don't teach critical race theory. This is a made-up, this is a Trump, Betsy DeVos, Glenn Youngkin plan to divide people. And it really bothers me. I try to unite people.
Yeah, that's what Terry McAuliffe does. He's a uniter, not a divider. When Terry McAuliffe, or just about any politician, is about to lie to you when they say, let me be honest here. Terry McAuliffe, I mean, this is not Glenn Youngkin who showed up, a few minutes ago. This is not Trump. It's not DeVos. They're not Fairfax or Loudoun County parents who are attending these school board meetings or teachers attending these school board meetings and going back and forth with school board members, at least until they get carried away by Merrick Garland and his jackbooted thugs. For more on all this, pleased to be joined again by our friend Bob Woodson, founder and president of the Woodson Center, and also the 1776 Unites effort to combat the poison being spread by the 1619 Project and race hustlers like Terry McAuliffe. Also, the author of the recently released Red, White, and Black, Rescuing American History from Revisionists and Race Hustlers. Bob, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me back, as always.
So, Terry McAuliffe, I don't need to tell you what critical race theory is because it's some esoteric theory that's taught in law schools some places, and it's not being taught in Virginia, and this is just a Trump-invented effort to divide people for the purposes of winning elections?
Well, it certainly is being taught, because in Loudoun County, they have in fact issued a directive from the superintendent's office that any school personnel that opposes the teaching of critical race theory will be dismissed, and they will be fired. And they're taking other steps like that. And this is really, Delonte Spears, one of our scholars, I think summarized it best as to what we have here. He said critical race theory is being embraced by elite, self-flagellating, guilty white people who are seeking absolution from crimes they never committed, together with elite blacks who are seeking absolution from injustices they never suffered.
So
these are the groups that consist of the foundation of supporting critical race theory. But thank God it's being opposed not just by white parents, by black parents as well.
Yeah.
In fact, the woman who called for an abandonment of public schools is getting a black woman who's getting all kinds of a positive response, particularly pushing back against trying to label parent protests as urban tourists. I think it's going to really help energize the parent pushback throughout the country. Thank God that they did that. They're overreaching, as they always do.
And just in simple terms, I don't want to get into the theorists and the some esoteric aspects of it, but just in simple terms, the critical race theory curriculum attempts to do what?
It attempts to define us not by the content of our character that we fought so long to achieve, but by the color of our skin. It says if you're white, then you are forever to be condemned and as racist and privileged. If you're black, you're to be pitied as a victim. It's used to be called stereotyping. That's why I prefer the old-fashioned bigotry that just talks about race in the term. But it really is saying that we should be defined by the color of our skin, and not the content about our character. That's very simply put. And this is what I went to jail and fought against in the Civil Rights Movement, and we were there until 10 years ago, and when all this other race foolishness came down. It's gotten so bad, Dan, that in one school system in New Hampshire, they're actually quoting Malcolm X and saying that blacks even have a right to exhibit violence, visit violence upon whites. I mean, that's the kind of craziness that is really being taught to our children.
It's teaching them, too, to hate America.
Yes. And to hate America. And in fact, I'm going to be addressing the Air Force Academy because in response to the woke curriculum there, they're being required to read Abraham Himdi's book on race. How can you tell young people that they should sacrifice their lives to protect the country that the officials are saying are inherently racist? Who wants to become a member of the police force to protect a community that is being defined as inherently and incurably racist? It is wrong. It is a danger. It's insidious, and it must be opposed. And it is being opposed. 80%, Dan, of the black Americans, particularly low-income black Americans, are against the tenets of critical race theory. They're against defunding the police. 60% of black Poles do not believe racial discrimination is a principal barrier to their successful future. But these voices are not the ones that are being heard, and that's why the Woodson Center is doing everything we can to get the word out. The very fact that our book sold out within 2 weeks of its publication on Amazon. The fact that we've got over 21,000 downloads of our curriculum that teaches accurate American history. And it's being used in all 50 states. So we really think there is a thirst on the part of the American public for the re-embrace of traditional American values, and they want to reestablish the teaching of accurate history. But it's also, Dan, very insulting to Black America. They're talking about abolishing honors classes because blacks and brown kids can't compete. So therefore, they should be abolished.
That just happened in New York City. They're getting rid of the gifted and talented program, right?
Right. That's an insult.
And
we have blacks in our studies who achieved in 1920 and 1940. You heard me say we closed the education gap between 1920 and 1940 in the South because of the 5,000 Rosenwald schools. We closed it from 3 years to 6 months. If we could close the gap during segregation, why can't we do it today?
And so when you see a pronouncement that was prompted by a letter from the National Association of School Boards to Department of Justice, you see a pronouncement from Merrick Garland, sort of a misdirection by projection play, which is one of the tools of the left. We're not advocating violence. People who believe what we believe, we're not. People who oppose us are potentially violent insurrectionists, and now we need federal intervention into local matters in Loudoun County or Fairfax County or anywhere else where there's any opposition to what you were just describing. How do you react to that, particularly sort of in the context of thinking about federal interventions during the civil rights era to protect Jim Crow as opposed to protect those who were combating Jim Crow?
Well, they're doing the same thing now. They're coming down on the side of protecting Jim Crow. And that's how it ought to be projected. They are the ones who are. In fact, parents now are wearing "I am an urban terrorist." If this is what they are accepting the label. If being an urban terrorist means speaking out forcefully at your school board against policies that help divide and diminish and desecrate the values of this nation, then call me an urban terrorist. That's what parents are saying. And I think all of us who believe in this country should stand with them. But I really think that labeling these parents urban terrorists is going to do more to mobilize more parents to push back.
I wanted to get your...
They're kind of the Bull Connors of today. They're the modern day. The government is the new Bull Connor. That's what mobilized the civil rights movement when they set the dogs on people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to have the moral equivalent of the same thing.
I wanted to get your reaction to another topic. 154 economists signed an amicus brief in the case of Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health. This is the Mississippi pro-life case. The Supreme Court's hearing this term, the Mississippi law prohibiting abortions after 15 weeks. They argue that abortion has helped women economically, and they write, another group disproportionately affected by abortion legalization was black women. For black women, the estimated reduction in birth rate was 2 to 3 times greater than the reduction for white women. And these 154 economists are accidentally telling the truth about the position of the pro-aborts. They're celebrating that fact that there has less black children today thanks to abortion on demand in this country. Does that not strike you as racist the way it strikes me?
Absolutely, it does. To say that in New York City as many kids are being aborted that are being born is a horrendous statement and a horrendous condition. And I don't think we should be monetizing that and even discussing it in those terms. But it is racist to do so. But it's, again, progressives never define what they do as being racist as long as they think they are doing it with good intentions.
The book is Red, White, and Black, Rescuing American History from Revisionists and Race Hustlers. He's Bob Woodson, founder and president of the Woodson Center and 1776 Unites. Check out their work of Bob and all the scholars, 1776unites.org. Bob, thanks so much for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
And thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Chicago is talking.